I hope that answers your question. My partner always says that if she asks me what time it is, I tell her the history of watchmaking. Yes.
This is going to be the last question of the night because Janis is willing to sit and sign books and CDs, but she does have 2 shows tomorrow at Yoshi's, and she's actually has a very sore throat, and so she hasn't spoken all day today to speak tonight. So I sort of don't want to I know, but she will stay and sign. So last question, please.
Could you talk about how your parents having been communists affected your
My parents would be the first to say they were not communists. My father because he was a capitalist, my mother because she had some bizarre definition that even my uncle can't remember. Obviously, their being leftists affected my life hugely. I mean, I was really raised, I think in the book I say I was raised to be a Maccabee. You know, Jewish second generation. If I don't stand up for whoever's being persecuted, there'll be nobody left to stand up for me. In my parents' world, to not stand up was an act of cowardice. People like my grandparents would spit when they talked about you. The people who informed to HUAC were beneath contempt. So I was raised with a very strong sense of duty.
Thank you.
Well, and that's got its pluses and its minuses, because on the other side of duty lies the Messiah complex, where you actually think that what you're doing is important in brain surgery, when in fact it's just songs. And you really have to kind of balance that out in your head. I think if there's anywhere that people like my parents have a rough time, it's finding that balance. Just like people who are sturdily right-wing have a problem finding that balance. My mother was appalled that my brother and I both grew up believing in God. My mother felt she had failed us. It's a question of balance. You know, my mother stopped talking to me when I went to South Africa. She didn't speak to me for a year. It's a question of balance. So, I don't know, it's funny to me because when people get all crazy over things like the Palestinian conflict or gay straight, I always think it's an accident of birth. You know, if I had a friend tell me a few months ago on vacation in her cups that you people, meaning Jews, you people had never thanked God for Palestine or for Israel. She was much in her cups. And I just thought, you know, if you'd been born in my family, you'd be a Jew. So how silly is it that you're arguing with me over this? I think that you hit your 50s and you start realizing how little most of it really matters in the long run. And, you know, maybe it gets a little harder to get up in the morning and put out leaflets or do the right thing. Maybe it's a little easier to stay home and watch reruns. But I think you also, again, in your 50s, start having some vague sense of balance with the world. And you start seeing that the whole quantum physics thing about a butterfly flapping its wings in Jakarta and then creating a tidal wave off of Africa or Japan has a lot of validity to it. You take the long view. So my long view of my parents would be that they were really good people. And what they wanted from me was that I would grow up to be a good person who would not be embarrassed on my deathbed by my actions. And unless there's a really fabulous question, we're going to stop now.
Thank you all for coming to Rialto tonight, and thank you for supporting the Peace and Justice Center up here. It's doing really extraordinary work. We're just all blessed to be here together, and please thank Janis. Thank you.